All right, guys, yesterday I told you I woke up, I had a text message. I got a buddy in a different time zone on the East Coast. He texted me at like 7 a.m. his time, 4 o'clock in the morning, a little before my dog wakes me up. At any rate, Tommy, you guys know Tommy, but I left his name out of the story yesterday because I thought his info was wrong. He told me that Nate Diaz is going to fight Michael Chandler. Now, I thought it was wrong for a couple of reasons, all of which were circumstantial. But to make a fight with a guy on 24 hours notice is an extremely rare thing to do. Like, we don't know who Charles Oliveira is going to fight next. We don't know who Thug Rose is going to fight next, right? I mean, just from this card, the one guy that you're going to pick from the entire card happens to be Chandler. Oh, by the way, you made a fight and you put it together on a Sunday, which is a travel day, when not only all personnel of the UFC are flying home to Las Vegas, but Chandler himself is flying from Arizona back home to be with his family. It was just a tough sell for me. Purely based on that. I just didn't think logistically you could get this done and have this signed off on. Well, it's still not. But it does look like Tommy's right. I mean, these two guys have agreed to fight. How come? What is it that Nate saw within Chandler, and was there anything? I don't know that Nate cares in the least who he fights. I mean, he has been extremely clear. I owe one and I'm ready to pay up. I'm ready to give you that one. I think Chandler must have gone at Nate first. Think that's how it went on social. I know they went back and forth at each other, and that's time-stamped and we can go find out. But in my mind, Chandler went at him first and Nate said, boom, done, let's do it. Which would mean they're going to do it at 170 pounds, I think. Now, was there something that Nate liked? Because I think the rest of you would have seen Chandler and said, man, that's one dude to stay away from. That dude looks really scary. Here's the thing about Nate that you guys don't know. And I will never be able to prove this is true unless Nate goes and boxes. And the only reason I know it's true is from seeing Nate in the practice room. His hands and his boxing is much better than you think. I know you think it's good. I'm telling you, not only is it better than you think, it is much better than you think. Nate Diaz, with the absence of the threat of the takedown, he's nasty. He's got incredible combinations. He hits way harder than you think, even if you think he hits hard. I'm telling you, it's harder. It is more volume, and he's very difficult to hit back. Now, you can't show that. You can't show that Western boxing in an MMA situation very often because of the threat of the takedown. I feel like if you were to describe Tony Ferguson, and you didn't say Tony Ferguson, you just described him. You just described a guy that can do great damage on his feet. You described a guy that could absorb. You described a guy who had incredible cardio. You described a guy that had great jiu-jitsu and loved to invoke it. You described a guy that the more he gets hit, the more he gets into the fight. But you left the name Tony Ferg out. I feel like it's the same thing that you would say about Nate Diaz if you described Nate but left Nate's name out. And Tony Ferguson did have some really interesting moments in that fight that caught a lot of people by surprise, predominantly on the feet with Chandler. Maybe Nate saw that and thought it was a good matchup. Most likely, Nate doesn't give a damn. Chandler said his name and Nate said yes. That's most likely. But the matchup itself is very peculiar. They did not agree on any kind of a weight class. Chandler is clearly a 70-pounder, but Chandler into the microphone with Joe Rogan flirted with, it was Conor specifically, but he flirted with, I'll go up to 170. Now, the interpretation to that for me is that you could take Conor's name out of it and just insert, hey, if it's a big fight and a big name, I'll go ahead and leave the weight class. I'll go up 15 more pounds. That was my interpretation, and I think that I'm right. I think you guys come to that same conclusion, which is where Nate would slide in very nicely. We could have that all wrong, and Nate's got to cut down and go down to 155. All I'm sharing with you is, if this fight happens, why? Why now? And you've only got two options. Nate doesn't give a damn and he's ready to fight. Or Nate saw something that he liked. And it might be what I just hit on the head. It might be the ability to reach out and touch somebody. It might be a respect that Michael Chandler does show superior jiu-jitsu guys to stay off the ground, not use that wrestling, and stay on his feet. It might be a variation of everything that I'm speaking to. But I do think it's going to be very hard to have an offer from Nate against a star and a fighter of the caliber of Chandler and turn that away. Not to mention, guys, we might even have a date. And you guys will remember the rumor that was just a hoped-for match, but it was posted on the boardroom in the UFC, and the picture gets out, that had to do with Diaz versus Chimaev, specifically July 2nd, International Fight Week. Now, that rumored fight is off the board and got replaced with another great fight, which is Volkanovski versus Max Holloway, but it's a different fight, right? It's great for different reasons. It's great for the X's and O's. It's great for the division. It's great for the... It's very different in terms of the star power of Nate Diaz, which will strengthen any card. But I think for International Fight Week, if you could announce that you had Nate in any capacity, in this case against Chandler, and you could probably play that game in reverse. I mean, it's not as though Chandler... Right, I mean, Chandler can fill up an arena himself. If you're trying to strengthen a card and you put Chandler, regardless of the opponent, so now you got these guys to find each other. I think the date does matter. It does. I would be most excited if that was to happen and it was going to be July 2nd. If we kept all that intact, if we built that up, if International Fight Week, for me, as the fan, that's the place to do it. Which also means you're not main eventing, you're not championship fighting, you're doing it for 3 rounds. But I like that too. See, I'm different than Nate on that. Nate for himself likes himself in 5-round fights. If Nate had it his way, it'd just be an hour-long, no break, right? I mean, he's one of those guys. I don't know that I fully agree. I think that one of the best that Nate has ever looked in his career was his return fight against Anthony Pettis, which, by the way, happened to be a 3-rounder. I like when he's got to exert that energy and he's got to do it. Now, that's preference. That's a talking point for a different time. But I think we can all agree if there's something that we can do to build this and let decision makers know that the mandate of the masses is behind that fight, I don't have a better idea. And frankly, I don't have any different idea. Nobody calls out Nate because they're afraid they're going to get shooed away and look like a fool because he's such a star. Nobody calls out Chandler because he'll kick you in the mouth and leave you face down. I mean, it's one of these things. Get those guys together, man. Sounds like a good idea to me.